Okay, if you could just start off by talking a little bit about the event today here in Bentonville West.
Well, first of all, STEM education is such a vital part of the success of our country and is going to play a more meaningful role going forward. We hear talk about AI and those kinds of applications. That's all out of the technological education, engineering, mathematics sort of world. So because of the importance of STEM education, every year, most every year that I've been in Congress, we have hosted and sponsored a challenge, and what we call the App Challenge, because there's an app for everything, in trying to stimulate the interest among our young people in developing applications that are answering some kind of need in our country. So today we've honored a young man here at Bentonville West, Ronak Pai, who has developed an application suitable for your phone for veterans. And it has the capacity to locate where veterans facilities are and what benefits you might be entitled to. So, there's an old saying that necessity is the mother of invention. And what these young people are doing through this app challenge is they are determining some of the problem sets that we have as a country and developing apps that answer that problem set. In this case, it was a veterans program. So we're just delighted to be able to host a program like that can inspire young people to want to do something that becomes really a part of everyday life.
And why do you think it's so important that you and your office recognize students like this to kind of encourage them to keep pursuing life with things like this in the future?
Our goal is to inspire young people to do incredible things. And look, I know in my district, I have some really high-performing schools that I represent. And it's my job, I think, to seek out the best and brightest in these schools to do profound things. I talk to them about this notion that one day they're going to be asked to do something very profound. So that's why we do the App Challenge, is to help inspire young people to address a need today using the types of platforms that are in use today by the American public and by the public writ large. So this is why we do what we do, and it's been very successful.
That's awesome. Okay, gonna switch tracks here, if that's okay. So starting off with the tragedy that we saw last night, Congressman Womack, you've taken that route many times, flying into the airport. Can you kind of just talk about that path, what it's like?
Yeah. When the winds are out of the north and planes landing at Reagan National are landing from the south, moving north, then there is an area outside the National Capital Region in the Virginia, Maryland area where planes typically gather to get into the pattern because there's a lot of traffic there. And usually you can look in that direction and see a number of planes in the pattern on final approach. So imagine this, you're coming in from the south, and there are landmarks that I see every time I fly through there, like the National Harbor and the big Ferris wheel at National Harbor. That tells me that we're just a few seconds away from touching down. And as you fly on down in descent and across the Potomac, you see the D.C. water facility to the right. There's a naval laboratory off on the right. And then if you're landing straight ahead, then it's just a normal straight ahead landing. In this particular case, they are landing on runway 33, which is a horizontal runway, so that forces the plane a little bit to the right, and then it does a banking procedure as it makes its final approach into the runway, which is exactly what happened last night, in that aircraft did the bank as it normally would to approach runway 33, and it was precisely at the moment where it turned and went into final that it collided with that helicopter. So very familiar with the flight pattern, and the flight pattern works. It is it appears to me, and I'm no expert, but it certainly appears to me that the plane was doing everything that the plane should be doing, and the pilots of that plane. That the one thing that kind of sticks out is, why was that helicopter in the position that helicopter was in when it made impact with the airplane? And that's the question that has to be answered by the safety people. In addition to that, the Transportation Safety Board is going to have to determine, and will do through analysis, of the communications between the helicopter and the air traffic control. And I think there's already been a release of some of that information about encouraging that helicopter to go behind the plane, that sort of thing. Well, it's hard to go behind something if you don't see it. So these are all questions that will need to be answered. It will take a while, as it should, but that doesn't diminish the fact that we have 67 people that have perished in a terrible accident that probably we're going to determine was very preventable.
Sure, and you've flown that. Has there ever been a time seeing all that traffic around you that you felt unsafe?
No, of course I work up there, and I've been up there for many years, and I see helicopter traffic all the time. I was at Kennedy, the Kennedy Center the other day for the Mardi Gras festivities during the noon hour, and I saw the helicopter that becomes Marine One when the president boards fly right outside our window. So you got Capitol Police, you got Park Police, you got Coast Guard, and you've got Marine Corps aircraft, occasional Black Hawks from the Army, always transiting up and down that river. So it's not uncommon to see a lot of helicopter traffic. What is uncommon is to see one of those helicopters in the path of a plane banking toward its final, and that's what we saw last night.
Having been in a military aircraft yourself, does a helicopter like this have TCAS?
The helicopter has the capacity to broadcast across a number of spectrums, and I'm not an expert on those spectrums, nor am I an expert on am I knowledgeable of what they were actually broadcasting on yesterday when this accident happened. I have been told, I haven't had it confirmed, but there is speculation that the helicopters were flying with what we call night vision goggles, NVGs, and that could have played a contributing role as to whether or not it might have limited the visibility of the pilots. But all of this is all speculative right now. We won't know until it's confirmed by the relative agencies that are investigating, and you'll have transportation involved, you'll have the FAA involved, you'll have the NTSB involved. There is no shortage of investigators that will take every opportunity to look at this terrible accident from start to finish.
And this was a training. They were all veteran pilots and been doing this for years. And so is night training something that's normal in that area, or was this something new that they were taking on?
Well, night training is important because it's part of our operational readiness. Whether or not they do it routinely up and down the Potomac with other traffic, I don't know. That will all come out in the investigation as to how much NVG type training we do in that congested traffic area. This is also at like 9 o'clock at night, so it's not nearly as congested at 9 o'clock at night as it might have been at, let's say, 9 o'clock in the morning. So that may have played a role in it, but let's let the investigation unfold. We'll see what it yields, and we'll have to accept those results.
And this is such a tragedy. Is there something that, as a state, you want the people of Kansas, the people of D.C. to know from here in Arkansas that you'd like to say to them?
Just how heartbroken we are for the tragedy and the loss of life, and just the heartache our country feels. I mean, it's terrible to happen anywhere, but particularly in our nation's capital. And I grieve with those families, having transited that route a number of times myself. The last thing you have on your mind as you're flying into Washington, D.C. is the potential for a mishap that could end your life. You're more interested in looking out that right side window and catching a glimpse of the National Mall on your way into the airport, because that's a sight to behold. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way last night for that flight, and my heart goes out to all of those who suffered as a result.
Have you had the chance to reach out to representatives in D.C. or Kansas?
Haven't yet.
One that way?
Ron Estes, is a friend of mine and a colleague of mine from Wichita, Kansas area. So he represents the area where the flight originated. Senator Marshall and I served in Congress together. Senator Moran and I are friends. We serve on the West Point Board of Visitors together. So, I mean, I know the Kansas delegation very well, and I know how heartsick they are as well. So this is a tragedy beyond anyone's, description, and we'll make the best of it that we possibly can.
Do you know how long they're thinking it'll take to get answers?
It'll be weeks and months probably before we get an answer on it. They're thorough. You want an investigation like this to be quite thorough. Now, there'll be some indications as to the potential outcome earlier, but when the final report is written, it'll be released. It will be comprehensive, it will be thorough, and it will put an end to this terrible tragedy.
So the big question from here on is just, how did this happen?
Yeah, that's always going to be the central question. How does, particularly when if it involves human error, that what could have been done? I spoke to these young people today at the App Challenge about how so much of what we do today has a technological piece to it, and we should always be in search of solutions to problems before they become problems. And so AI will have a piece of that. There will be other technologies that will be employed using data and experience and those kinds of things that can maybe help us prevent something that happened so tragically last night.
And then my last question would just be, I guess moving forward, do you think they're going to make changes to that air traffic flow or different safety precautions?
This would undoubtedly kind of raise the question about the practical application of Reagan National. But let me tell you, it's a good airport. It's a useful airport. It's very close, and it is congested airspace. So while there will be a discussion, I'm sure, that some will broach about whether or not we need to have an airport at that location, I would think that before that would take place, that there would be a determination, and maybe the answer is not shutting down Reagan National, but maybe further limiting some of the air traffic that would be complicating the airspace around there. But look, it works. It has always worked, and you can never really take the human condition out of the matrix. You can get it close to zero in terms of the percentage of incidents, but I don't think you can get it to zero because humans are involved. So let's don't have a knee-jerk reaction or do something that's going to have a result that further complicates matters. Let's let this investigation unfold and go from there.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you. You bet.